Public Communications and New Media, Larry Olayinka, Fayose cited insecurity and economic problems in the country as evidence of what he described as the president's cluelessness and inability to steer the shape of the country. He also said the abduction of over 100 pupils of the Government Girls Technical College, Dapchi, Yobe State, and the recent report of the Transparency International are enough for the president to resign. Fayose described those urging President Muhammadu Buhari to seek re-election as selfish people who do not have the interest of Nigerians at heart. Some members and supporters of the All Progressives Congress APC have decamped to the People's Democratic Party PDP in Benue State. The members who celebrated their defection on Saturday in Otokpa headquarters of Ogbadigbo local government area of the state said they were exiting the APC because of the federal government's poor handling of the incessant attacks and killings of the people by Fulani herdsmen. Earlier, Governor Ayodele Fayose of Ekiti State and Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, both members of the PDP, visited the governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, to commiserate with him and the people of Benue State. The governors also made monetary donations to the state government for relief materials, a move which was seen by many as calculated attempt to lure the governor into PDP. The former governor of Ekiti State, Segun Oni-led committee, which was inaugurated by the All Progressives Congress APC to look into the crisis facing the Kaduna State chapter of the party, has begun its assignment today. The national headquarters of the APC had inaugurated the committee following the demolition of the Kaduna APC factional office. Members of the committee are the Deputy National Chairman, Southwest, Segun Oni, the National Auditor, George Mogalu, and National Women Leader, Ramatu Aleyu. However, the committee's inaugural interface with the leadership of the Senator Hunkoyi-led faction could not hold at the demolished factional secretariat of the party at 11B Samba Road, Kaduna State. This was due to the late arrival of members of the committee. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has faulted the composition of the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC committee set up to investigate the existence of underage voters in some states. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu had constituted the 8-man in-house committee following the alleged registration of underage persons in Kano and Katsina states. In a statement by its National Publicity Secretary Kola Ologbodiyan today, the PDP pointed out that the committee lacked credibility. They say the panel constituted by INEC lacks credibility as it comprises members of the same indicted INEC officials. PDP also said they have been detailed to arrive at a predetermined findings and recommendations aimed at exonerating the Professor Yakubu-led commission and also to play down on the electoral implications of the existence of underage voting. The federal government delegation has visited the Maturu Yobe State to meet with the state government officials and the principal of Government Science and Technical College, Dapchi, where over 100 students have been declared missing. The representatives are calling on the federal government to increase military personnel in the area to guard against recurrence of such attack. This is the second time in 4 days that a federal government delegation would visit Yobe over the issue of the missing Dapchi girls. The representatives are Minister of Information Lai Mohammed, Minister of Interior Abdurrahman Dambazau, Borno State Governor Kashim Shettima, the District Head of Dapchi Katala, Yoroma Kamba, elders and politicians. The Rivers State Police Command has paraded one pastor identified as Chidebere Okorafor for killing 3 persons, including an unborn child. The suspects were Ace, the pastor of Altar of Solution Church Uzoma in Afam Oyigbo local government area of Rivers State, had allegedly killed one Ada Consilia Ezeawa, Krista Ebel, Joseph Uluoma Onwiagba, and an unborn child. Briefing journalists at the police headquarters, the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Finance and Administration, Cypriel Okoro, said the incident started on the 11th of December 2017.
The pastor confessed to the commission of the said murder of all the deceased persons. Dwelling on the trust the deceased person had on him, he manipulated the 2 women on the said date of murder by first luring Ada Consilia Ezeawa to an uncompleted building while telling the other deceased person to wait 3 poles away that he was coming to join her. She was suffocated with the wrapper she used in strapping the baby on her back. The baby was equally discovered dead. The suspect, in confirmation to his earlier confessional statements, took the detectives to the various scenes and reconstructed the act of how he snuffed lives out of his victims. Autopsy has been carried out on all the corpses, confirming the cause of death.
The DCP said after preliminary investigation by the police, coupled with diligent search by members of the community, the decomposed corpses of the deceased were discovered. And moving on, the Defense Headquarters has denied allegations that its troops were withdrawn few days before the abduction of schoolgirls in Dapchi, Yobe State. The Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General John Ajim, who discussed this to journalists, said there is no truth in the allegation. Ajim said the military has been in a location that is about 30 kilometers to the school before the attack. Meanwhile, Senate Leader Ahmed Lawan, representing Yobe North, said the terrorists must have struck when they saw that there were security lapses in Dapchi. The Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSA, says there is no need for data capturing while applying for renewal of driver's license. The FRSA Lagos State Sector Commander, Hygienius Omeje, who discussed this to journalists, said the agency departed from the old system long time ago. Omeje said recapturing of data would only happen when people want to change their passport photographs or change some variables stated at the initial stage in the data. An appeal has been made to Nigerians not to ignore victims of human trafficking in the country. This appeal was made at an anti-human trafficking community awareness program organized by Salvation Army to sensitize Nigerians on the dangers of the menace. The report.
It is no news that Nigerian women and children are subjected to trafficking in persons to other West and Central African countries for forced labor and forced prostitution. Just recently, the federal government rescued some Nigerians from Libya. To curtail this act in Nigeria, these stakeholders were brought together by the Salvation Army Nigeria territory to sensitize Nigerians on the ills and implications of human trafficking.
The recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring or receipt of person by means of the threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of adoption, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payment or benefit to achieve the concept of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation.
Human trafficking is a modern day slavery. It is a situation where human beings are exploited, where the labor of Nigerians, Africans are exploited, both sexually in form of labor exploitation.
Our aim is to bring in different stakeholders and workers in this space to work collaboratively and to share ideas, knowledge, experiences, so that we can be stronger together in fighting this menace in our society. We understand that we can't do it alone. It will take a multi-pronged approach and a multi-agency approach to really fight it effectively.
While these stakeholders were unanimous in their submission that poverty is a major cause of human trafficking, they speak on possible solutions to the menace.
The bane of this is poverty. People are lured into traveling abroad, into sex working for money in order to take care of themselves, and they don't see anything wrong in it. And we're saying no, that in Nigeria there should be a stop to that, and hence this conference, so that when people are sensitized and everybody, all hands are joined together, all of us will fight this ill, which is now a trend.
Human trafficking scenarios both in country and cross-border, and the most important thing is it requires involvement of the community, families, and the government and civil society organizations in resolving the push factors, the pull factors, and the operation of the traffickers and smugglers in the country.
The most important thing is for us not only to rescue from the clutches of the exploiters, victims of human trafficking, but us to see a process of proper reintegration into the society, that victims are rescued, they are made to go through a system of vocational training, and then they are empowered and reintegrated into the society.
According to the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, Nigeria is one of the leading African countries in human trafficking. In view of this, the time is right for awareness to be raised among citizens on the dangers of human trafficking.
If you've just joined us, Wharton Super Screens flagship news. We'll take a short break here, and when we return, we'll bring you business news. Stay with us. Well, it's so glad to have you there. Now in business news, the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, in Ogun State says about 73 petrol stations have been sealed off for various offences. The head of operations DPR Ogun State, Muinat Osagie, who disclosed this to journalists, said the offences are ranging from under dispensing of fuel, holding and selling of the products above the approved pump price of petroleum products. Osagie called on other fuel stations and stakeholders to adhere strictly to the rules and regulations of the agency. As part of its contribution to government's commencement of review of the Environmental Impact Assessment Act 1992 and other environmental guidelines, some stakeholders in Rivers State have organized a dialogue to have an input on the issue. At the meeting in Port Harcourt, the state capital, the experts expressed belief that the review will address issues concerning the Ogoni clean-up process and articulate the views of stakeholders on how best the Act 1992 being reviewed by the National Assembly can be expanded to cover social, health, rights, and gender impact components.
There has to be massive awareness. Environmental awareness in the country is still abysmally low. For our country, Nigeria, I will strongly advocate the National Assembly leadership on environment. And they're bringing in experts to educate them and train them sincerely on the way forward, to include the human right impact assessment, which we are advocating today, to be included in things like the EIA or to be done independently, so that they will create a leverage for boxing to the corner the IOCs when they say that certain environmental things are classified and nothing can be done about it.
It's to look at strengthening the existing framework in terms of our laws. For instance, the Environmental Impact Assessment Act of 1992 that's currently under review, to say what are the things that have happened since that law was enacted in 1992 to date. What are the new developments, global best practices, leading practices in other parts of the world that we can put in place to further strengthen our governance regime in this area. Between the time that this EIA Act, the current one we have in place, was enacted and today, a number of developments have happened even on the international stage. For instance, the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights has been adopted by a number of countries, including Nigeria. How much of that and its elements have been infused into our laws on environmental governance?
It is necessary because, I agree that we are, there is impact assessment for the environment. But whatever you are doing in the environment also affects the human being. It also affects the different strata in society. And so it is important because without that, the hostilities we are talking about, all of these issues of disease burden, they are not going to be attended to. The essence of today's gathering is to articulate civil society position so that the current EIA, the way we have it, can be expanded to include issues of human rights, social impact, and gender assessment.
Well, some environmentalists are bearing the mind on the need to make the environmental law favorable to all. Still staying with business news, the Minister of Water Resources, Suleiman Adamu, says about $14 billion is needed to carry out an interbasin transfer of water to save the receding Lake Chad Basin. Adamu, who discussed this to journalists during an interview in Abuja, explained that members of the Lake Chad Basin Commission, LCBC, have agreed to come up with solutions on how to save the lake. He also said a study carried out by a Chinese firm in 2012 showed that it was possible to conduct an interbasin transfer of water from the Congo River Basin to the Lake Chad. According to him, the current situation of the lake posed a serious security risk to member countries. He also noted the lack of activities around the lake had fueled Boko Haram activities in the region. And that's it, the business news. We'll take another short break to bring you news from the foreign scene and then sports this day. Many thanks for being there. Now in international news, at least one person has been killed and 2 others injured in the Democratic Republic of Congo as security forces dispersed anti-government protesters. Security forces shot live ammunition and tear gas at demonstrators as they tried to march in the capital, Kinshasa, today to demand that DRC President Joseph Kabila step down. Organized by the Catholic Church, the marches were meant to start after today's Mass, but armed forces surrounded the city's main churches and blocked several roads, according to media reports. Jean Mobert Senga, a DRC researcher for Amnesty International, said security forces fired live ammunition at peaceful protesters in the city's St. Augustine and St. Bernard neighborhoods. Syrian government forces have launched a ground and air offensive in eastern Ghouta hours after the United Nations Security Council voted unanimously in favor of a resolution calling for a 30-day ceasefire in Syria. President Bashar al-Assad's forces began fighting opposition groups from multiple fronts in the rebel-held enclave near Damascus, while Syrian warplanes continued to shell the besieged area for the 8th consecutive day. Eastern Ghouta is the last remaining rebel-held area east of Damascus and has been under siege by Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces in an attempt to drive rebel forces out. Still talking foreign news, a planned visit by Mexican President Enrique Pena Nieto to the White House has been called off after a heated phone conversation with the United States of America President Donald Trump. President Nieto is planning his first visit for either this month or early March to Washington since President Trump's inauguration. But it fell through after their failure to find common ground on a long-standing dispute over Trump's proposed border wall. Report says the two leaders have agreed that now was not the right time for an official visit, but they would have their teams continue to talk and work together. And now to sports news tonight. The national wrestling team, the Hope of Nigeria, has vowed to continue the boycott of their training camp in protest of the non-payment of their accumulated allowances for various African and international wrestling championships. The athletes, through their representatives Ames Daniel, male captain, and Blessing Oborududu, female captain, had written to the Nigeria Wrestling Federation stating reasons for taking such drastic action. They claim they are being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. The letter, dated February 17, 2018, was jointly signed by the two athletes, stating, I read and I quote, "We wish to inform you that we are boycotting the Commonwealth camp due to non-payment of our allowances as promised." End of quote. Still talking sport news, report says Canadian skier David Duncan has been arrested on charges of stealing a car in South Korea, where he was competing at the Winter Olympics. Duncan's wife, Marja, and manager Willie Rain were also arrested. A police official in charge of international crime at Gangwon Provincial Police Agency told journalists that a Canadian athlete, his wife and manager, had tampered with a car. They had gotten into the car in Pyeongchang, which had been left unlocked and unoccupied with the engine running. The police official, who did not identify the suspects by name, said the manager drove off with the car before it was stopped by the police. Report, however, says Rain was charged with impaired driving. The three were released but restricted from leaving South Korea. And now Villarreal has suspended defender Reuben Semedo and taken him off their payroll a day after he was charged with offenses including attempted murder and held in custody without bail. Reports say the 23-year-old offender was arrested on Tuesday for alleged involvement with others in holding a man who they threatened with a gun. While always respecting the notion that everyone is innocent until proven guilty, the club has decided to suspend the player from duties without pay until the ongoing case has been settled. Villarreal said in a statement on their website that this will be their position. On Thursday, a judge ordered that Semedo be held in custody without bail for charges also including robbery and illegal possession of weapons. And finally, on Super Screen News, still talking sports tonight, the Olympic flag, which fluttered over 17 days at the Olympic Stadium in Pyeongchang, South Korea, has been handed over to Chinese organizers today for the next Winter Games. The 24th Games will hold in Beijing in 2022, while the 23rd Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, some 180 kilometers east of Seoul, came to an official end today. This was after a 7-day run in the South Korean Alpine town, with the closing ceremony in the Olympic Stadium in Pyeongchang. The handing over of the Olympic flag to the organizers of the next Winter Olympics host city during the closing ceremony marked the official completion of the Games. Following the performance by K-pop artist Seal, the national flag of Greece, the birthplace of the Olympic Games, was raised. And that's it on Super Screen News tonight. Many thanks for watching. I am Adenike Weyajiboye, saying to have a pleasant night's rest, and I wish you the very best of the week ahead. Good night.